Welcome back to Rewitched, a charmed 1998 rewatch podcast. Join us on our journey as we recap, examine, and critique the series episode by episode from the beginning.
We'll be keeping our podcast spoiler-free, so we welcome fans, new and old, to join us in watching and reflecting on one of our favorite shows. Currently, we're on Season 4.
I'm your host, Jess Sabanko.
And I'm your host, Mia Sabanko.
Now let's get into this week's episode.
This week, we're discussing Season 4, Episode 6, A Night to Remember. It originally aired on November 1st, 2001, and had 4.69 million viewers.
So we open up this episode in Paige's loft at night. Paige is in bed with some guy. There's a lot of candles. They are not clothed. And she's telling him this fairy tale about an evil enchantress. And the guy's like, I hate her. And Paige is like, really? I always kind of related to her. He's like I said, I love her. Then what happened? And she tells him about a sign in the stars that her powers were at their darkest. She says once the evil enchantress saw the sign, she locked away the beautiful maiden and cast a spell on the unsuspecting prince. She starts to say the spell, but then that she can never remember the end of it. And he's like, let me guess. The prince defeats the evil enchantress, he married the beautiful maiden, and they lived happily ever after, right? She says, actually, the evil enchantress bore an heir, killed the prince, and ruled the kingdom forever. He's like, what kind of fairy tale is that? And she says, just one that's kind of stayed with me for as long as I can remember. I told you I was a weird kid. He says, I need to get you out more, Paige. She says, it'd be easier if you were around more, Glenn. He says, I'm around now, and they start making out.
I mean, to be fair, if my name was Glenn, I wouldn't want to be around anybody either. No offense to all the Glens out there.
Glenn, if you're a fan of the pod, we're sorry.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't mean it.
Glenn, if you're a hater of the pod, we meant it.
Yeah. Oh my god. But anyways, I like this little situation we got going on. I wonder who this new character that just fell into our laps was.
Yeah. He's a cutie. I like him and Paige's dynamic, their energy with each other. It's pretty cute.
Yeah, it is. Very romantic setup and everything. Obviously, hearing about this fairy tale, we can imagine this episode's gonna have something to do with that.
And honestly, I really like fairy tales, so I'm excited to see where this is going.
I'm looking forward to it. So then we zoom in onto a fairy tale book cover and then fade into this like old-timey kingdom. And Lady Julia, who's played by Bethany Joy Lenz, our favorite,
Love her.
absolutely, is brought into a room saying, how dare she be summoned? And the enchantress, who is hidden in the shadows, asks to be forgiven for the late hour and says, alas, I had no other choice. The stars have aligned. And Lady Julia says, you don't frighten me, enchantress. The stars are on the side of good, not evil. Tomorrow my prince and I will marry, and there is nothing that you can do to stop that. He loves me, not you. She says dark magic can change that. And she lifts her hands, and this wind blows Lady Julia back against the wall, and these prison bars fall down in front of her. And she walks up to the bars, and she says, why are you doing this? Then the enchantress steps forward, and we see it's Paige, and she says, because this is my destiny, not yours.
Ooh.
Paige got that evil in her. She got that dog in her, if you will.
I don't know. I suspect there may be some type of connection between Paige and the evil enchantress.
I don't know. You must be one of them super witches. Yeah, I'm getting that idea too, for sure.
No, but I love this. I will say my one negative comment is the writing here. They're doing that thing where they're trying a little bit too hard to be old-timey but modern at the same time. And you have to go one way or the other. You have to fully commit or you need to not do it.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't quite work fully.
Like, alas, and then he loves me, not you is so modern. Like it just
Yeah,
doesn't,
doesn't quite track, I guess.
yeah. But I do like the way that the scene was set up and kind of like hiding the face at first so that we didn't know that this character was also being Rose McGowan. Also, is someone else doing the voice or is she doing the voice? I could never tell.
Me neither. It sounds like she's got some sort of like enhanced audio kind of thing, like
Yeah.
that deepened it a little. Unless she can just turn her voice that way, because it does sound like the voice of Paige, but like way deeper.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know if Rose can just do this other voice or if like they're modifying it or if it's someone else recording. Like, I just can't tell.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious about that too.
Wish we could have her on the pod. Rose, if you're a fan, hit us up.
Yeah, seriously. Oh my God, imagine.
But no, I think this is a really interesting start, and I'm excited to see kind of like where this is going and how her and Paige might interact.
Absolutely. I'm definitely excited to see that too.
So then we have the theme, and after that, we're at the manor in the morning, and Piper's sitting in Prue's room, and we see some like stuff laid out on her bed, like some clothes and a necklace. And Piper picks up the jacket and puts it on and leaves the room. Now, I have a question about this scene, and it's specifically because of something that Paige points out later in the episode about how, like, Prue's room is like a shrine to Prue.
Mhm.
Have those clothes been sitting there for months and are there every day? Or is Piper laying clothes out for Prue every day?
Wow. She probably is. Yeah, I mean, Prue's room was always very neat and tidy, you know? So she had to have been like kind of going through her things. But like I would be doing the same thing probably.
It's this very, like, motherly thing to do, right? To lay out clothes for someone.
Yeah,
And so if she is doing that to kind of keep her connection to Prue, I think that's something really interesting. And it's something I wish we focused in on more because it's such a quick scene. And I think it could say so much about the character and how she's coping with this loss that could be so much more interesting if they had given us just 45 more seconds with this scene.
absolutely. We kind of just got like that slight glimpse of what's going on and have to leave the rest to our imagination.
Yeah. And especially if this is something she's been doing and like she's each day maybe taking a piece of Prue's clothing or jewelry or something and wearing it as a connection to her after she lays out the clothes. Like, I wish we'd gotten this in previous episodes and this had been an ongoing thing for her because I think it's so interesting.
I definitely agree. I totally do. I wish we could see more of this.
Yeah.
So we then move to the kitchen and Piper is making her coffee and Phoebe walks in with wet hair and says, "Look at me. I look like a drowned rat. I need my blow dryer." And Piper says, "Pretend you're camping." She's like, "I hate camping." Piper says, "Well, I hate instant coffee, but I'm drinking it, aren't I?" And she's like, "We can't keep living with no electricity. It's medieval." And then they start talking about the shocker demon and needing the power of three for this vanquish. Then Phoebe grabs the phone to call Paige, and Piper says, "No, not the cordless," just as the shocker demon comes out of the phone. And he shoots electricity at them, and a bunch of stuff gets broken. And Piper blows him up, and he goes back into this outlet. And she asks Phoebe if she's okay, and she says that they need to call Paige and set up a time for the vanquish. And Piper's like, "Phoebe, we can't schedule vanquishes, okay?" And Phoebe's like, "Then what do you suggest?" And Piper's like, "I suggest that maybe Paige move in with us." And she gets up and Phoebe follows her and she's like, "Wait, what did you just say to me?" She's like, "Well, she's gonna have to sooner or later, isn't she?" And Phoebe's like, "I never really thought about it. I can't believe you, of all people, are actually suggesting it." And Piper says, I'm just trying to be practical. Besides, I'm sick and tired of Leo watching over her day and night, protecting her from various demons. I would actually like to see my husband again. And Phoebe says, and I can understand that, but it's still a huge decision. Do you think we're ready for that? Piper says, all I know is that every demon is out who's out to impress the source is attacking us, which means we all need to be under one roof. Otherwise, we're too vulnerable. And Phoebe says, I didn't mean are we ready as witches. I meant are we ready as sisters. I mean, what if we don't get along? She says, well, we didn't always get along with Prue either. She says, yeah, but that's different. We grew up with her. Eventually we had to get along. I still have to expect to see her walk through the door. Maybe it's just too soon. And Piper says, well, there's only one way to find out. So this is interesting. Piper, who would have seen this coming from her, of all people?
I know, it's so unexpected, but also with the way Piper has been in some ways taking on Prue's focus on defeating evil this season, it makes sense. And I
Mhm.
think Piper operating from this logical standpoint of like, well, I mean, this is what makes sense for us. Like, we need
Right.
Paige here because magically we need her. And Phoebe kind of focusing in on the emotional aspects of it. Like, are we ready as sisters for this? Like, is our relationship at a place where we can move in together? Because the truth of the matter is, yes, they're sisters, but they've known Paige what, a month, 2 months at this point?
Right. It's still fairly new for something like this to be happening. Especially like from Piper, we can kind of see that she's trying to avoid looking at it from that angle and is trying to focus solely on the practicality as, witches. And I think a lot of that maybe stems from her fear of losing another sister, and them being so vulnerable all the time with the source after them now that Prue is gone, you know?
Yeah, especially with her talking, I forget exactly which episode it was in where she says, what if I'm not ready to love someone else, to let someone else in?
Yeah,
And now she's like, well, let's just invite her into our home, not because I'm ready to open myself up emotionally to my new sister, but because it's practical and it's going to keep us safer. Which
exactly.
makes sense, but also I very much understand why Phoebe is kind of hesitant about the idea, especially when last episode Phoebe brought up the point of when you're grieving, you shouldn't make major life changes.
Yeah, it's definitely I mean, it could be a step in the right direction, but we also don't know for sure yet. And I don't think Piper is fully aware of what she's getting herself into by suggesting this. Not to mention, we don't even know how Paige would feel about this whole situation either.
Yeah, I think Paige is someone who already we see has a value in independence, and we'll see more of that throughout this episode without, spoiling some of what she'll bring up. But I do wonder definitely how she'd feel about this. Paige is someone who grew up as an only child, has never lived with other kids that we know about. And, this would obviously be a very different, very big step for her. She's probably been on her own since her parents passed away. So it would be very strange for her to come into this environment of living with her sisters and brother in law.
Absolutely. It'd be very, very different for her.
Also, I mean, the whole shocker demon thing, obviously, this is our monster of the week, creating that need for this sister storyline to really be established.
Exactly. Kind of like our B plot.
Exactly.
Yes. And of course, I like how they kind of subtly make it connect, like the whole, oh, no electricity, it's medieval, and then we have the medieval times kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
But
a
yeah,
very cute little, like, oh, like,
connection there.
yeah, clever. I like it.
Agreed.
So then we're back at Paige's loft and her alarm goes off, and Paige is like, oh my God, it's 9 o'clock. I'm so screwed. And it's like, then why did you set your alarm for that time?
That's
Like,
so me
what?
though. I'm like, I'm gonna wake up to go to the gym at 6 in the morning and I set my alarm for like 9:30 and I'm like, oh shoot, I missed it.
I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I set my alarm for the time I want to wake up slash need to wake up to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
Crazy idea. But then Glenn wants her to stay because he's leaving tomorrow. She's like, you're always leaving tomorrow, Glenn. That's what you do. And she gets up And he looks at her and she's like, what? He's like, 9 to 5 isn't you, Paige. You've always had too adventurous of a spirit to be pinned down. And she says he just stops by between his travels. He doesn't know her like that and goes to the bathroom to get dressed. And Glenn says, your life can be a fairy tale. It doesn't have to end badly. And she says, who says it's going to? He says, come to Australia with me, Paige. Just for the hell of it. Why not? She says, because I've got too many responsibilities. That's why not. And he says, you're 25 years old. You've got the rest of your life ahead of you for that kind of crap. Just go for it. Dump your job and have fun with me. And she comes back and finishes getting dressed and says it's not just her job. She has sisters now and stuff they have to do. He's like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? She says, I'm not sure yet. And they start kissing.
See, if a man said those things to me, I'd be like, fine, I'll pack my shit now. Let's go. Like, are you kidding me? But that's also just me, you know. You know, that's how I am.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna pay, I'll fucking pack my shit now and let's go somewhere. Let's do it. I love that
Honestly, I
shit.
feel that.
It's the best.
I will say I really enjoy their dynamic. I think we're getting a sense of their relationship. They're probably exes, would be my guess, who like still see each other when he's in town.
Right. Yeah. It seems like they kind of have this like friends with benefits kind of situation going on. And obviously they have known each other for a while, you know?
Yeah, like there's a clear history, a clear connection there. I like that they both are clearly on the same page about their relationship, but there's this obvious like for one another there. Like it doesn't seem like it's just sex, right? If it was, he wouldn't be like, come with me to Australia. There's clearly either a friendship or something romantic beyond just him stopping by for a hookup when he's in town, right?
Absolutely.
And I like this way that she's kind of like playing on the like, oh, like you're never here, you don't know me, but like him reading her, right? And him really getting
Him
who she
really,
is.
yeah, him really actually knowing her and how she is as a person. It's great.
Yeah. But also not knowing the new her, who she's been established as the last couple of months. I think we saw something similar when Andy came back into Prue's life or Clay came back into Phoebe's life. And it's like after you become the charmed one, your life changes so much that these older connections, sometimes there's a little bit difficulty getting them going again because you do have this new responsibility that she's kind of hinting at in this scene.
Right. It's a drastic change in her life that she's not even able to explain to him, you know? So it definitely, we've seen it put rifts in other relationships in the past, and I wonder if she's going to be the Andy or the Clay, you know, someone who does find those things out eventually, you
Yeah,
know?
me
Guess
too.
we will see.
I definitely am interested to see if we will see Glenn again. I mean, spoiler, he's going to go to Australia at the end of the episode, right? So we're not going to
Yeah,
see him in the next episode. But if he's going to come back, if there's more to this relationship, or if this is a little one episode storyline for Paige. Either
yeah,
way, I really like the establishment of it here. And I really like that it's raising this question for her of what will become part of this episode. Like, do I want these responsibilities in my life? Or do I
exactly.
want the adventure? Which I think is something all of the sisters have asked at one point. Do I want to take on this magical destiny?
Yeah, she's having her little moment of confliction here.
Yes. And I will say, just totally unrelated to the storyline itself, but I love Paige's outfit in this episode. Like
Me too.
it's one of my favorites of all time. And the little like braids, like she looks so fucking cute. And I love the like ruffly top. Like it's adorable.
Yeah, I absolutely love her outfit. Could go without the boots because I don't think they match perfectly, but aside from that, everything else, perfection, and she looks so cute.
She does.
So then, outside of Paige's door, Piper and Phoebe walk up and are about to knock, but Leo orbs in like right in front of them before they can. And he starts acting super weird and awkward and just like tells them like, all right, bye. And it's really funny. And Phoebe's like, what do you mean bye? We just got here. And he's like, right, well, you know, I don't want to leave Paige unprotected. And Piper's like, uh-huh, is she home? And he's like, yeah, she's home. She's just a little indisposed at the moment. And Piper's like, wait, you watch? What are you, like a peeping angel? And he's like, I didn't see anything. And then he's like, all right, just a little, but how else am I supposed to protect her? And then Phoebe looks kind of between them. I don't know how Piper remains so calm in situations like this because, ew,
Yeah,
ew.
yeah. It's
That is my
fucking
sister.
disgusting.
That is my sister, and you are my husband. That would be game over right there. Like, ew, why are you watching? Why would you even want? Oh, God.
And it also brings me back to like in season 3, the fucking origins of concentration, being afraid that like her and Leo were being watched in intimate moments, and now it's like literally being exposed that he's fucking doing that to Paige.
Exactly. Like, what the hell is going on? Oh my God. And Piper's just like
Yeah, like they
not
literally
freaking
just
out about it.
low-key turned Leo into a like I don't even know what to call this.
Little creeper.
Like maybe he should be on the registry for these. I'm a little
Right.
concerned.
Seriously. Like imagine that. You're like what if you had a husband and he was just like watching me have sex?
Yeah, no, that would not be okay with me.
That's horrendous. Ew, like just the thought of that shit alone is like what the fuck's wrong with me? How else am I supposed to protect her? You close your eyes sometimes, dude. Like you don't gotta be around every second of every day.
No, literally, literally.
Doesn't even add up. But anyways, yeah, kind of a funny, weird, gross kind of scene.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's also when you really think about it, it gets a little. But we've also seen that the sisters are way too close before, so am I
Yeah,
really that surprised that the show would put this in there? No, I'm
yeah,
not.
not at all, unfortunately.
So then we go inside the apartment because Phoebe just walks in because I guess Paige doesn't lock her door either. And she's like covering her eyes and she's like, sorry to interrupt, can't see a thing. And Paige like grabs her shirt and like covers herself with it as Piper and Leo walk in. And she's like, what's going on? And Phoebe's like, I know this looks bad, but it's very important, believe me. And then she notices Glenn and is like, whoa. And Glenn's like, who are they? And she's like, the soon to be ex sisters I was telling you about. And Piper says, okay, we're sorry, but we didn't know which way to turn, if you know what I mean. And Glenn says that he should go, and Leo throws him his pants, which are like on the railing, like way across the room. And she apologizes, and he tells her that the plane leaves tomorrow and then kisses her and goes, but like not out the door to like some other area. So I'm not really sure where he went. And then,
I think he went to the bathroom, no?
but the bathroom was on the other side of the room before. So I really don't understand where he went.
Oh, then I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't know where he went. And he like acted like he was leaving the apartment, but then didn't exit. Like I was just like, where did you go? But anyway, so Glenn orbed out, I guess.
Yeah.
And then Piper's like, plane? What plane? And Paige is like, never mind. This better be important. And Phoebe's like, I can't use my blow dryer. And Piper's like, so have you been attacked by the shocker demon yet? And Leo's like, no, she hasn't. And Paige is like, how would you know? And Phoebe's like, he's been watching you for the last week or so for your own protection. And she's like, you've been watching me? He's like, I didn't see anything. And Phoebe says, at least nothing very interesting. And Piper's like, right. And Paige is like, that's it, out. And Piper starts saying that they need to talk about the demon, but Paige like throws them out the door. And in the hallway, Phoebe's like, I think that went fairly well. And inside, Paige is like, unbelievable, and rolls her eyes.
I absolutely love this whole scene. Again, just like a glimpse of straight comedy and like it feels very siblingy. And it's so funny because it's not something Paige is used to, like we talked about. She's used to like having her own space and it being on her own. But like when you have siblings, it really is like that sometimes. Like Caitlin and Josh will just burst in my door at any time, like when I lived at home, you know? Like it's like it's such a like siblingy thing to just burst in the door and like bother you, and you're like, what the fuck? I can only imagine, like, when you think about it, how weird it must be for someone who's not used to it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because like again, growing up with like a sibling in the house with me, it's like it's something you just don't think about. But like if you always lived kind of like on your own, like it's like of course you don't expect someone to just walk in your door and be like, hey, like, let's
Exactly.
talk. What's going on?
I was so used to that not only because like I have siblings of my own, but most of my friends have siblings too. So like they're used to that too. So I would even like walk into my friends' houses, even to this day, like I'll walk into my friend's house and just like go straight to her room, whether she's in there with her man or not. I don't give a fuck. Like I'm the same exact way. I can't even lie. I'll be like, oh, my bad, gang. Get dressed because I'm here now.
Here's your pants off the railing.
Yeah, seriously, like that's really how it is sometimes. Oh god. But yeah, no, I think this is very comical. It's just kind of again introducing that idea of Paige having difficulty with the whole new dynamic of their lives and, trying to bring up the shocker demon and them needing to be together for this vanquish where Paige is just completely denying it.
Exactly. Yes.
Then we move back to the old-timey castle, and the prince is there saying, "Where is she? What have you done with my beloved?" And the enchantress in a white silk gown says, "You mean I'm not your beloved? Oh, I'm crushed." And then he draws his sword and says, "Your dark magic doesn't scare me, enchantress. Tell me where she is, and I just might spare your life." And she says, "Very well. Your beloved is right here, my prince, right before your very eyes." And she throws a potion at his feet and says the spell, and he puts his sword away and drops to one knee and kisses her hand. And he says, "My love, I am forever yours." And then he kisses her neck, and the enchantress is like, "As will be your kingdom, once I have conceived an heir." And they go to the bed.
I want to point out because like every single time we see these two, they are about to kiss and then don't. So I guess like Rose really did not want to kiss this actor.
Yeah, is that what that is?
I
Like,
have no idea, but I noticed every single time they're about to kiss, the scene cuts out all
you're
episode.
right.
And I was like, damn, she didn't want to kiss this guy.
Seriously. Even last episode, she didn't want to kiss what's his face, but that was just the one scene.
She did kiss Glenn though. I'm throwing it out there.
Exactly. Like, I wonder what this is about.
But I will say, when he like kisses her hand and is like, my love, I am forever yours, swoon.
Swoon. I love it. I love it so much. Seriously, like, okay, where's this energy when I'm around? Like,
No, literally, like I'm gonna need to drop one of these spells.
I know, like, does this shit actually work? Like, give me some notes here.
Yeah, like Enchantress, can I be you, babe?
Pretty much. And I just have to say, Paige with that extra long wavy hair, killing it.
Yeah, no, she looks so good. And like I like the makeup, like I like the whole like I liked the little green thing she had going on before. I think the white silk gown looks really nice.
Yeah,
The outfits are really giving in this episode.
absolutely agree.
I also like how easy it was to use this dark magic too. He's like, your dark magic doesn't scare me. And then 3 seconds later, I'm forever yours. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
seriously.
maybe you
Same
should have
thing
been
with the
scared.
I know. Like seriously, that's kind of how it was with the princess in the beginning, or Lady Julia, where
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, like your magic isn't gonna stop our love," and she's like, "Well, I have a love potion, so what are you gonna do about it, bitch?" Like,
Yeah. And then she's like, put you in jail real quick.
I know, like, what? You guys have nothing on this bitch.
Yeah, like she's like super fucking powerful. So maybe they should be scared. Like, I'm a little confused why they're not.
Me too. I'd be terrified. Shit.
I also really like that her plan is to just have his baby so that she could take over his kingdom and have nothing to do with him. Like, honestly, girl boss. I like to see it.
Girl boss to the max.
She was, like those people who like marry like dying old men for their money. This is like the old timey version of that.
Yeah, she's a old timey sugar baby.
Love it. Love to see it. Live your best life, Enchantress.
Exactly. Oh god.
And I mean, obviously, we do have kind of like the mind rape, like sexual assaulty type of vibes because of the love spell in this episode. But I think that one, we pointed out they don't even actually ever kiss. And I mean, two, I'm having a little fun with this one. So even though, of course, morally I would never agree with love spells, I do like it for the plot and I do like kind of what it's setting up for the Enchantress. So I am enjoying this character a lot. So then we're back at the manor in the entryway, and there's knocking at the door, and Piper yells to calm down and gets the door. Paige is like, "At least I knocked." And Phoebe's happy. She's like, "Hey, Paige." And Paige walks right past them. She's like, "I'm not here to talk to either of you. I'm just here to look at the Book of Shadows." And Phoebe's like, "Hey, we said we're sorry." And she's like, "Yeah, right." And Piper says, "What do you think about moving in with us?" And Phoebe turns and looks at her, and Paige is like, "Excuse me?" And she's like, "Well, that's what we came to talk to you about. You know, we're tired of getting attacked by demons here and not being able to do anything about it." And Phoebe says, "But we could do something about it if we were together. You know, if we lived together, because that's when we're the strongest. What do you say?" She's like, "Are you two out of your freaking minds?" And walks up the stairs, really pissed off. And Piper's like, "Don't people usually storm out of the house when they're angry?" And Phoebe follows after her.
Again, I just love it. There's so much of this like sarcastic comedy and play for this episode, and it works so well for me.
The writers this season are really nailing like the comedy and the wit to a new level. Like it's the show's always been pretty funny, but like they've really been on it the last few episodes.
Seriously, it's like this whole new side. I'm loving it.
Me too.
And then of course Paige's like angry energy, and then like Piper just kind of throwing that out there. Like that was definitely not a good time to bring that up.
Yeah, not when I would have done it personally.
Yeah, I think there could have been other moments where it would work better, but Piper's just so like,
It's like, you're super mad at us and want nothing to do with us right now? Want to move in?
yeah, seriously.
I love like Phoebe's like cute little like, "Hey Paige" energy in this scene.
Yeah, I know. Like everything's a-okay.
I know, I love it. And then Paige just being like not dealing with their shit at all.
Seriously. So then up in the attic, Paige is flipping through the book, and Piper and Phoebe walk in, and Phoebe's like, "So you're not even gonna consider this?" And Paige says, "Nope." And Piper asks, "Why not?" She says, "Because if it was that easy for you guys to barge into my room all the way across town, imagine how easy it would be if I actually lived here." And Piper says, "Okay, could you stop looking at the book for a second?" And she says, "No, it's my book too." And Piper says, "If you lived here, you could look at it all the time." And Paige looks up and says, "I understand why you guys are asking me. I really, really do. It's just I don't want being a witch to take over my life. It's just too much responsibility." And Phoebe says, "I know it is, Paige. And believe me, I freaked out in the beginning too. But I didn't have a choice, and neither do you." And she says, "Why not? Aren't you the one who told me I should fight like hell to keep my life separate from magic?" And Piper says, "Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way." And she says, "Well, maybe it would if I didn't live here." And Phoebe's like, "If you're looking for the shocker demon spell, we already found it." She's like, "I'm not. I'm looking for something else." And Piper asks what it is, but Paige doesn't answer. And she's like, "Look, you may not want to share a bathroom, but when it comes to that book, it concerns all of us." And Phoebe says, "Besides, maybe we can help." And she walks over to Paige, and Paige is like, "Okay, I know it sounds stupid, but when I was little, I invented this horrible little fairy tale, and it just always seemed really real to me." And then she finds it in the book and she's like, "Oh my God." And Phoebe's like, "The evil enchantress?" And Paige starts saying the spell and they try to stop her, but it's too late and she finishes it. And then it cuts to the old timey castle and the prince hears thunder and like gets teleported, summoned out. And the evil enchantress sits up and she's like, "No." And then back in the attic, the prince arrives and kneels before Paige saying, "My love." And the sisters are shocked. So again, really good scene. I like them trying to convince her and talk to her. Phoebe trying to be like as reasonable and like middle sistery as possible when she's usually like the more aggressive one, and yet we see Piper coming out to play being like the more I don't give a fuck anymore kind of person, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Really see Piper kind of laying down the law in a way and really being like, look, this is what needs to happen. Like, I get it, you're mad, but like, tell us what's going on. And even like the way Paige is like, listen, I get why you guys want to do this, but you're the ones who told me to like have my own life, do my own thing. And now you're taking that. And one thing about Phoebe's thing that I want to question, did Phoebe not want it in the beginning and feel freaked out? Because I don't think that's true.
Yeah, no, that was never really the case for Phoebe. Like, she was like the one person who wanted this more than anything.
Yeah, like there were definitely times where she was interested in kind of having her own thing separate than magic, which is obviously why she went back to school and stuff. But she was never like freaked out by being a witch. She was always
Yeah,
super into it.
yeah, she definitely was. I mean, there was definitely times where she's like, why can't I just, like that one episode where she was like, why can't I just have this one thing
Yeah.
uh that magic doesn't touch, like her graduation episode, yes. And we've seen her definitely a little later on go through that kind of like, I wish there were certain things that magic could stay away from me during, which I guess is something they've all felt, of course, but like she's never really been freaked out about it that we've
Yeah,
seen.
exactly.
But I don't know, maybe she's just trying to relate, I guess.
Yeah, I think her goal really is to make Paige feel understood,
Hmm.
which I think is really a big part of that middle sister role, right? Is making sure that both the other sisters feel heard and seen in whatever it is they're experiencing in that moment to kind of help them come together and settle their issues.
Absolutely.
Also, we already knew the evil enchantress was real because we saw the flashbacks, but this is our confirmation, right? Because she's in the Book of Shadows. And then, of course, the prince appears in their world. So the two stories are now colliding.
Yes, ma'am. It's happening.
So then we go down to the kitchen, and Paige runs in, and the prince and the sisters follow after her. And the prince is like, why do you run from me? And Paige is like, why are you chasing me? And they're like running around the island. And he's like, because we are meant to be together. She's like, that is not true. Does this look like King Arthur's court, buddy? And it's really throwing me back to Enter the Demon when she kept calling like Cole buddy and stuff when she was Phoebe.
Yeah, seriously, but hey, buddy.
And he's like, it doesn't matter. We're meant to conceive and air, my love. And she's like, oh, stop saying that. And Phoebe's like, you guys want some privacy? And Paige is like, this is not funny. And she calls for a plate and hits him over the head. And he like drops to his knees. And she's like, I'm sorry, did I hurt you? And he's like, you could never hurt me, my love. And ooh, this is some really bad symbols of abusive relationship here. Yikes.
Yeah.
And he kisses her hand and she's like, Piper, do that thing you do. And she's like, I might blow him up. She's like, well, risk it. He's using his tongue, which gross. And Piper freezes him and Paige steps away and she's like, thank God chivalry is dead. He is getting on my last nerve. And Phoebe says that he must be under a spell, but they're confused about why he's lusting after Paige if the evil enchantress cast a spell on him. And Paige starts to walk out and they tell her she can't leave. And in the entryway, she says, yes, I can. I don't live here. And Phoebe says, you can't keep running away from these things. That's what we're trying to tell you. Being a witch is not a part time job. And she says, yeah, well, if I don't leave now, I'm not going to have a full time job. And Piper says, Paige, the charmed ones come first. And Paige just leaves. And Phoebe's like, the charmed ones come first? And she says, it always worked when Prue said it.
Again, I swear this whole episode is just full of like underlying comedy and it's so good. Like
Yes.
her running away from the prince and everything, and Piper and Phoebe are just like in the back cracking up about the whole thing. I would be the same way. I'd be like,
No,
this is
same. Like I would be so
hysterical.
entertained. But if I was the one experiencing it, just like Paige, I would be like freaking out. I'd be like, get the
Yeah.
fuck away from me. Like, what?
I'd be like, somebody stop this. I'm gonna lose my mind. Oh my God,
Literally.
that's so funny. But like, I do gotta say, it's a little fucked up that she'd just leave when it's literally her problem that she brought to light.
No, literally, like you cast this spell, bitch. Like
I know, and like leaving him in their house for them to deal with it. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
literally. But you know what? It's too much responsibility for her, which is
Yeah,
what her struggle of the episode.
exactly. I guess we will just I guess we'll see how that progresses over time.
Yes. Also, I do love, the charmed ones come first thing and like Piper again trying to be that lay down the law older sister and just not being Prue, right? I think Piper is trying really hard in this episode to be like Prue. And part of the symbol we saw of that, right, was her putting on Prue's coat earlier in the episode. And
Yeah,
now we see her saying, like, Prue always used to say this and it would work.
right.
And I think we're going to see that Paige is struggling with something similar a little later in the episode. And this idea of having to fill in the shoes of Prue.
Absolutely. I kind of like the dynamic where they're kind of putting that them both feeling like they have to be Prue, but for different reasons and in different ways, you know?
Yeah.
And I definitely find it very interesting. And also, I'd like to point out, not once ever has Prue said that.
Yeah, I've never heard Prue say the charmed ones come first either. I guess it happened off screen. You know what we
Mm,
call that?
yeah,
Plot's
plot's
sake.
sake. Precisely. Yeah, no, but it is definitely very interesting. But I mean, and Prue was always the one who's like, hey, like, at the end of the day, this we have to do this, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Like, Prue was that one who was, especially in season 3, very focused on their destiny as the charmed ones and what that meant and that coming before everything else in their lives. So it does make sense that this would be a Prue quote. We just never directly heard her say it.
Exactly. So then back in the living room, they notice that the TV is playing the VCR recording, and the shocker demon comes out of it, and Piper tries to blow him up, but then he starts electrocuting her and she falls back into a chair. And Phoebe levitates, trying to kick him, but he starts shocking her, and Piper runs over with the coat hanger and hits him, and then he goes into the outlet. And Phoebe says that she's all right, and Piper's like, we've got to convince Paige to move in with us soon before there's nobody left to move in with. And then they remember about the prince and head back towards the kitchen to find him. I feel like Paige doesn't need to move in for them to take care of this demon. Like, she was there. Why didn't they just, okay, like, I get you're pissed off, but like, real quick before you go, can you help us take care of this
Yeah, no,
asshole?
it's
Like,
like we already know the spell. Let's flip a fucking light switch and take care of this man.
yeah, before he kills one of us, like, you
Literally.
realize that it literally is life or death.
Also, why the fuck did Phoebe think that she should kick him? Obviously, she was gonna conduct the electricity and get fucking shocked. That was the
Yeah,
stupidest move ever.
I was thinking the exact same thing. I don't know what was going through her mind there.
Like, babe, no.
Better luck next time.
Literally. So then in the kitchen, we see that the prince is gone. And Phoebe says, what did he go back to fairy tale land? And Piper goes over by the laundry room and says, no such luck. The back door is wide open. He probably went after Paige. And Phoebe's worried about exposure, but Piper's kind of like, oh, I mean, it's San Francisco. Who's going to notice? And Phoebe's like, eventually they're going to trace him back to us. And Piper says that she should scry for him and that if that doesn't work, they'll get Leo to bring Paige back and hope the prince will follow. And Phoebe says, maybe we should try a different approach with her. Piper says she's not going to come back here voluntarily. And Phoebe says, I mean about getting her to move in. Maybe it's too soon for her, too.
At least they're kind of starting to realize that, hey, we cannot control everything. Like, it's not just about what we want. Paige also has a voice, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But aside from that, with the whole Prince thing, I feel like this is a lot of pushing the plot, kind of, so that we know that, okay, he's going to be gone now and we're going to have to worry about him running the streets in San Francisco.
Exactly. Exactly. And I also love how, like, at first they're like, I mean, it's San Francisco. No one's going to notice this knight walking around the street. It's whatever. It's kind of like the same thing in New York. You see somebody dressed as a knight, you're probably not going to say anything.
Yeah, it's not gonna not gonna really occur to anyone. So then on the street, we see the prince start hitting this garbage truck with his sword. And then the driver gets out with the bat, and the prince just cuts the bat in half and tells him to take him to his beloved.
So this scene again, peak comedy. I really like the way they're kind of playing on this thing of like the tough garbage man, and then like the prince just instantly cuts the fucking bat in half, which is
Yeah.
hilarious. And then this is like threatening him and is like, "Take me to my beloved," and he's just like, "Huh?"
Like, what? Like, boy, I don't know what you mean by that. So then we go back to the old-timey prison, and Lady Julia asks if good magic rescued her prince from the Enchantress, then what makes you think he'll return? And the Enchantress says, I don't. That's why I plan on following his footsteps and bringing him back. After I destroy the good magic that intervened, of course. And she's like, what makes you think you can? And the Enchantress raises the bars and says, oh, I don't know, because I'm petty and evil and vindictive, but most of all, I'm determined. At least she knows herself. And then she puts the sword to Lady Julia's neck. Lady says, I am the object of his true love. Your spell only appropriated it. Kill me and you break the spell. And she's like, I know, I know. And then cuts off a piece of her hair and says that she needs it for the potion. Then she walks away and the bars go back down. Then Lady Julia tells her that she can't do this. And the Enchantress says, one thing you need to know about me, Lady Julia. Nobody tells me what to do. And she starts the potion.
Dude, I'm crushing on the evil enchantress. She's such a bad bitch.
I know, seriously, like she got my heart right now. I can't lie.
I'm petty and evil and vindictive. Like,
I know. I'm gonna get that tattooed
love
across
it.
my chest. Like,
Same. Love it.
oh god, that's so perfect.
I also will say, like, I really admire, even though for me it feels a little misplaced, Lady Julia's kind of like bravery and willingness to just kind of stand up to someone who is clearly much more powerful than her. So I do like that. I think we have two really strong women in this scene, which is interesting to see in the setting of medieval times, right?
Exactly. Especially like I feel like we only really get to see that from the sisters when they're involved with evil women, as opposed to like, anyone else. Because any other women that we see, they're usually like coward, like scared. And here we get to see even the victim being very strong in the situation, and I love it.
Something we've also seen before in the show, these really strong women in all different time periods. Like we saw it with Isabel last season in The Good, the Bad, and the
Oh yeah.
Cursed. We saw it in All Hallowell's Eve with the women who were protecting Charlotte. We've seen it quite a bit, I'd say, even in older times. Melinda Warren was obviously a very strong woman in her time. So, kind of seeing these different
Yeah, I guess that's true.
representations of good that really stand up for themselves in time periods where you may not expect a woman to do that.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we have seen quite a bit of that in different time periods where that wasn't typically the case. I
And
do
I
enjoy
also
them showing that.
really enjoy that the evil enchantress in no way seems to be controlled by any male figure. I think a lot of times when we see evil women in the show, they have some type of man as kind of like their boss or something, and she doesn't seem to have anything like that, which I really like.
Me too. I definitely do too. And of course, her plan to go to the future and get her prince back. We know this is going to be a problem.
Oh yeah, she's gonna face down with the charm ones.
Yep, it's game time.
Exactly. So then we're at social services in the copy room, and Paige and Leo are there. Paige repeats the line of the enchantress, saying, "Nobody tells me what to do, Leo. And besides, I'm still mad at you for watching over me. I deserve better than that, especially from you." He says, "Well, I'm a guardian, Paige. It's what I do. Especially during times like this when it's dangerous for you to be alone." She says, "It's a fairy tale, not a horror movie," which call back to season two when they were haunted by horror movies, and also to the fact that Rose was a horror movie queen,
True. Scream Queen.
Scream Queen. And he says that he was talking about the shocker demon. And she says that she's more scared of the prince. And Leo says, "All the more reason you should be staying with Phoebe and Piper." She says, "What if I don't want to? What if I want to go climb a mountain or dive the Great Barrier Reef, huh?" And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Look, I've had a blast being a witch, I like the spells, like the potions. I'm even getting used to orbiting. But God, I've just had enough. And he says, there is no enough, Paige. This is who you are. You know that. Why are you running from it? She's like, oh, gee, I don't know. Being hunted by the source, ducking the furies, being shrunk by a psycho demon, not to mention being chased after by my bedtime stories. I don't know why I wouldn't want the rest of my life to be just like that. He says, you're not alone anymore. You have sisters now. And she says, yeah, sisters who are pressuring me to move in with them for all the wrong reasons. And he asks what she means. And she says, sometimes I feel like they want me to be Prue, the super witch. And I can't. I don't know how. He says, I don't think they think that. And she says, oh, yeah? Have you checked out her room? It's a shrine. Doesn't seem to me like they're ready yet. And it's a pretty tough act to follow. Don't make me go back there, Leo. Not yet. I need some time. And she walks out into the main part of the office and says that she'll call him if she needs him.
So here, I definitely do understand Paige's whole side of things. Like, don't get me wrong, I do feel she's being a little bit stubborn and, could try to open up to the ideas a little bit. But again, she's young, and all the points she's making, I feel are very valid. Like, they're pretty reasonable. And that's kind of what I was thinking too when they first even approached it to her. And she kind of did give them that opportunity to say, hey, we want you here as my sister, like, so that we could learn to be sisters and get close together. But instead, they said, oh, it'll be easier to fight demons if you live here. Like, that's not a reason to get somebody to move in.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, it doesn't make her feel supported. It makes her feel like she's even more being pressured into being this super witch that she's not ready to be yet.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's not even this idea of like, oh, here's a key. Stop by anytime you want. Like, we can spend more time together. Come over to the house. Maybe you should move in eventually when we all feel we're ready. It's, hey, move in so we can fight demons right now. Let's do it.
Yeah. And that's not fair to put that burden on her or that, conflict, I guess.
Yeah, and I really do get all the reasons why, like we were saying, she feels pressured to be like Prue in the same ways that Piper does. It's just for very different reasons because they both have these parts of her that they kind of have to fill in after that loss.
Right. I definitely agree.
And I do get Paige kind of after these battles, after what's been going on, being like, yeah, there are some good things about being a witch, but it's also kind of scary and it's also not everything I wanted it to be. And I think she feels the same way about being part of this family right now. Like, it's
Definitely.
not everything she expected, and she doesn't know if she's really ready for it or ready for the responsibility.
Especially when she has someone in this episode that she does have a history with, offering her a much more appealing, adventurous life, but in a safer way, I guess.
Mhm.
And, she's also got that option to consider as well.
Definitely. And I do like the way that Leo is so understanding
Mhm.
and really gives her this opportunity to talk. I like the way that she's really able to open up with him and he offers that safe space for her to voice these concerns, which would probably be really difficult for her to say directly to Piper and Phoebe.
Exactly. It's a little more like they're more stubborn and Leo is mostly just there to listen and be there for them?
Mhm. And I do like how she calls him out. She's like, listen, I'm still mad at you, but I'm more mad at my sisters, and this is why.
Exactly. Like we're not letting go of the fact that you're being a peeping Tom over here, but
Is that a callback to that time when Piper said his name was Tom in Coyote Piper?
whoa. Listen to all these callbacks today. Then we move back to the manor, and Phoebe is in the parlor scrying while Piper's on the phone with Daryl, and he tells her about the prince in the garbage truck, and she hangs up. And Phoebe's like, please don't tell me that the police found him. And Piper says, not yet, how about you? And she's like, nothing. Then Piper starts to call for Leo, but he orbs in, and they ask where Paige is, and he says that she didn't want to come. And Piper is confused and says that they need her. And he's like, she knows that. And Phoebe's like, I don't understand. We're her sisters. And he's like, yeah, but that's not the reason you need her. Look, I don't want to get in the middle of this. This is between you guys. but I will tell you that just wanting her to battle demons with you isn't enough of a reason to get her to move in. And Piper says, it's a pressing reason. And Phoebe says, yeah, but it's not a sisterly one. And then they share a look, and Leo says that they should read about Paige's fairy tale in the book and find out more about the prince, and he'll go check with the elders, and then he warps out.
So another character who hasn't been around this season, Daryl, where the fuck you at?
Seriously. But I do love this, like, I do like this whole scene. The way they found out from him definitely makes sense to me. And them kind of not really understanding Paige's side until Leo says that thing, and then it's like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah, and it makes total sense to me that Phoebe's kind of the one that understands it first and then kind of gets it through Piper's head. I think that's kind of very much been their relationship dynamic this season, so that was really effective for me as well.
Absolutely.
And I mean, the stubbornness, we see it in Piper just as much as we see it in Paige.
Oh yeah, every single one of them have this issue.
Yes, definitely. And I think, finally deciding to go check in with the elders. Thank you, Leo, for doing your job here.
Yeah, about time.
Not just hanging around.
Seriously, levitating in the living room.
So then we go back to social services, and the prince walks in and just pushes some random guy out of the way, like looking around for Paige. And she's in the copy room, and he's like, alas, I have found you. And she's like, how? He's like, I followed your heart, my love. And she pulls him into the room and closes the door and tells him he needs to leave. He's like, I will not leave until you are with child. And she's like, okay, A, I always use protection. And B, you're a fairy tale. And he goes to touch her face and she backs away. And he's like, I won't harm you. And she leans back against the copier, and the shocker demon comes out and starts attacking her. And he hits it with his sword, which I don't get how it didn't conduct the electricity because it's metal, but whatever, plot's sake. And she falls down, and the demon goes into the outlet, and he helps her up, and he's like, fear not, I've slain the beast, my love. And she looks at him and says, you most certainly have. And she's like all dreamy eyed. And Mr. Cowan runs up to the door, knocking and asking if she's okay, trying to get in. And the prince touches her face and says, I will stay by your side every moment of every day. You would know you were protected, desired, loved. She's like, that's so sweet. And then security busts the door open, and her boss asks what's going on. And Paige is like, oh, he's from the Renaissance Fair. I'm trying to get tickets for the orphanage. Gotta go, and leaves. And Mr. Cowan just looks confused as fuck.
Like this whole situation, absolutely hysterical. First of all, Paige didn't lock the door, she only shut it.
Yeah.
Second of all, just leaving work in the middle of the day and like everything's a-okay is so weird. But I do love like stop, because if some guy said that to me, like you would every moment of every day you would know you're protected, desired, and loved. Like
Swoon.
yeah, swoon. Immediately swoon.
Also, Paige is actually a pretty decent liar here. Like, oh, we're getting tickets for the orphanage. Like, not that bad of an excuse, Paige.
Yeah, I really would have had no clue what to say.
Yeah, like, we can quick on her feet. I like it.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of comedy in this scene as well. I always use protection.
Yeah, I love that. Um,
For
but I
more
like
unsafe
this
sex.
Paige kind of coming around to the prince and everything.
Yeah, kind of that, like, I don't know what to call it. That little, like, earlier she was like, I don't want someone to be chivalrous. And now she's like, you saved my life. I kind of like it.
Yeah, like okay, now I'm kind of feeling you a little bit.
Maybe you are handsome.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And of course had her first experience with the shocker demon
Yes.
that Prince Charming took care of.
Exactly. I also will say I love that he doesn't have a name. I
I
like
know.
unnamed male characters. It works for me.
It's kind of cool.
Mhm.
So then we go back to the manor in the attic, and Phoebe's looking at the book while Piper is lighting a candle. And Piper's like, I don't see what the big deal is. You'd think she'd want to move in here, considering the dump she lives in. Just wait until the shocker demon attacks her, then she might not be so resistant to the idea. And Phoebe's like, defiant, clever, and independent. That kind of describes Paige, don't you think? And Piper's like, yeah, along with stubborn, stubborn, and more stubborn. And Phoebe's like, all right, listen to this. A powerful witch who came to the craft late, but learned to use it quickly. I'm telling you, this is Paige. And she thinks that the evil enchantress is Paige's past life. And Piper's like, but the enchantress's power was to conjure the elements. Paige can't do that. And then all of a sudden, a portal appears, and the enchantress appears and knocks them down, asking where the prince is. And they run, and she throws like lightning bolts at them and follows them downstairs.
So, a few comments here. Paige's place isn't a dump. That's rude.
Yeah, she's got a cute place.
Like, come on, Piper. Not everyone
She's
could
all
live in a
pissy.
fucking manor.
I know. Like, well, no.
Also,
Um,
I love the way she's like, Paige doesn't have that power. Okay, we've already seen from past lives, Phoebe didn't have her past life power, neither did Prue.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, like
The
that
only
was,
person who had their same past life power is you, babe.
yeah. And even then it was slightly different.
Yeah.
But like again with that whole thing, like I don't understand because I thought they all came from Melinda Warren, and if they're somewhere along the family tree and Paige has that past life, wouldn't it be somehow a part of
I
their
guess it could
ancestry?
be different because both of Paige's sides. Well, no, because her father was human before he became a white later. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a little confusing, but again, plot sake,
Plot's sake.
precisely.
Maybe she is distantly related.
I mean, who
Though, I
knows?
mean, their powers were supposed to start with Melinda Warren, like you said, so
Who knows then?
who knows? Plot's sake.
Exactly. But either way, the Enchantress, they now see that they were right, that it is, or that Phoebe was right, it was a part of Paige's past, which is why he's so enamored with Paige in the present.
Exactly. So then we cut downstairs to the kitchen where Piper and Phoebe have fire extinguishers and are putting out flames. And Phoebe's like, why do you think she left so suddenly? Did trashing our house become too boring for her? And Piper says she probably realized we don't have the prince. Great. It's not like we're having enough problems with Paige. Now we have to deal with her past life too. And Leo orbs in and starts to say that he found out about the prince, then asks what happened. They fill him in on the past life stuff, and he's like, okay, well, you have to stop her. You can't let her find him. According to the elders, if she conceives his heir, dark magic will rule his kingdom forever. History will be rewritten, your future. And Piper's like, we'll be screwed. The world will plunge into darkness, yada, yada, yada. And Phoebe's like, okay, that's not helping. If we vanquish past Paige, don't we risk vanquishing our Paige too? And Leo's like, possibly. And Piper's like, okay, then we won't vanquish her. We'll bind her powers and send her back in time, hopefully a virgin, and she goes to start the potion.
Hopefully a virgin. I love it.
But also, doesn't the evil enchantress then have to have a baby for Paige to be born if she's a descendant of her?
Exactly.
So,
Unless maybe she has a sibling or a cousin, like we saw they were cousins in that life,
oh,
where it could be some sort of relative.
that's true. That's true. I guess she could have a sibling who has a baby.
Yeah. Another thing is we also learned about past lives that their souls, like it has to do with their souls looking alike or them recognizing souls. That's why they look the same to each other because they all stay in the same circle. So why are we not seeing in the evil enchantress's life people who may be looking like
So
other
you're
ones in
saying
Paige's
Lady
life?
Julia should have been one of their past lives. That's what you're saying.
I mean, no, because they don't have to be related, but like maybe the prince could have been Glenn or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you're right. That would have been really good.
you get what I'm like, it obviously didn't have to be, but like something like that would have made sense because they had already gone over that whole the circles stay intertwined.
True. But that would also establish them as soulmates, which I guess we don't know
Exactly. Yeah,
if that would be the case with these two or not.
true. Again, we'll just have to chop it all up. Plot sake.
Exactly. But I do like kind of what's going on here. I think the scene is effective overall, and I like, you know, that everything's all messed up and the enchantress is destroying their house.
Yeah, and I do like their plan here to find her powers.
Exactly. I think it's smart.
So then back at the social services office, the enchantress is there looking for the prince. And then Mr. Cowan comes in calling for Paige and sees her and says and asks what she's doing there so late. And the enchantress is like, "What name did you call me?" And he says, "Don't tell me you're in the fair too." And then just like chuckles and is like, "Don't forget to lock up." And then he leaves. And she walks over to the wall and notices a picture of Paige and a coworker and pulls it off the wall and says, "Looking forward to meeting you, Paige," realizing that it's her future self.
Exactly. This is really just establishing her, finding out about her current life, and
What drew the prince away from her?
exactly. So then we go to Paige's loft, and she's sitting on her bed, and the prince is sitting across from her. And she talks about having always wanted to save him so he could live happily ever after. He says, "Be with me, and I shall. Come with me, live in my castle as my princess." And she's like, "What is it with everyone wanting me to move in with them?" And he talks about all he can give her, and she says it's just the spell talking. And he says, "But isn't that what true love is? Falling under someone's spell?" Ooh, I like that line. He's like, "Just tell me what you want and I'll give it to you, I swear." She says, "Can you make me as good as Prue was?" And that broke my fucking
Oh,
heart.
I know.
And he's confused, and she's like, "Never mind, you wouldn't understand." And he's like, "Try me." And they're about to kiss when Leo and the sisters orb in, and Piper freezes him. And Paige is like, "What is going on with this barging in thing? This is getting ridiculous." And Piper's like, "Sorry, like I thought he was attacking you." She's like, "He was trying to kiss me." And she doesn't get why they're there. And Phoebe tells her that the Enchantress has come to the future. And they explain that she's Paige's past self. And Paige is like shocked. And she's like, "Does this mean I'm evil?" And Piper's like, "Yeah, no." And Phoebe's like, "No, not you, just your past self. You've grown and evolved. Believe me, we all have. It's what we do." And Paige is like, "Right." And Piper's like, "So the plan is to bind the Enchantress's powers with this little potion." And they all pull one out, and Paige takes Piper's and says that she'll do it herself. It's her story, and she'll end it. Phoebe says, "There's no reason for you to do this alone. It's not just your story anymore. You've got sisters now." And Piper says, "But if you want to do it by yourself, then go for it." And Paige says she does, and Piper says they'll stay with the prince, and Paige smiles and goes. And Phoebe says, "Why'd you let her go?" And Piper says, "Because it's time we realized we can't make her do something she doesn't want to do."
Yeah, no, I definitely liked this scene. The whole Prue reference totally broke my heart for Paige. Like, poor girl is just trying so hard to be as good as her and has never had to feel that kind of responsibility before. And, the whole moment with the prince, very cute again. And I like that Piper had that realization at the end where she's like, we can't make her do something she doesn't want to do. We gotta let her go through this. I'm realizing now that I can't force her.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of the same thing Prue had to constantly learn with Phoebe before they could become close was she can't change who Phoebe is, right? They're
Hmm.
always going to have that differences between them. And once she started to accept Phoebe for who she was and love her and give her the chances to make mistakes and try things on her own, that's when they became closer. And I think Piper's starting to realize that about Paige. Like the more they try to really cling on to her and force her to be what they want her to be, the worse off their relationship as sisters is going to be. If they
Exactly.
want her to come to them, they have to let her try things on her own first.
Precisely.
The only other thing I'll say here is I do like the way that Paige is kind of like curious because again she doesn't know about the past life, she wasn't there for that, so kind of having to learn about it and move on quickly. And kind of like they said, like with the enchantress, she came to the craft late but she picks up on it early, and I think Paige really does pick up on
Yeah.
things really quickly and make good decisions. I think Paige's independence here is something we saw a lot in Prue as well, wanting to do things on her own. and learning later that she needs to rely on her sisters more, which I think will come up by the end of the episode.
Exactly. Yeah. It's definitely something she needs to experience in order to learn that lesson.
Mhm.
So down in the street, Paige walks up to her car and gets in, and she sees the evil enchantress approach and use her wind power to stop Paige from driving away and like pops a tire. Then Paige gets out, and the enchantress is like, "Don't tell me I become good in the future." And Paige is like, "Damn good." Then Paige throws the potion at her, and the enchantress blows it up midair. And she's like, "And here I was, so looking forward to meeting myself." Then she throws Paige back into a car, and Paige like is knocked out. And then upstairs in Paige's loft, Leo senses that Paige is in trouble, and Piper sends him to go get her. And the prince is still frozen, and the enchantress walks in and says, "Remember me?" And down in the street, Leo goes up to Paige and heals her, and she wakes up and says that it was the enchantress. And then they see lightning flash in her loft windows, and they start running up there.
So, I mean, this is mostly plot for me. I like the way Paige kind of has that confidence, even against the evil enchantress here. But of course, on her own, is quickly defeated by a very powerful witch. I
Of
think this is
course.
something that might need the power.
I definitely agree. And I do love like you said, Paige's confidence. And I just have to say, the way like the music starts when Paige looks up in her car and like the evil enchantress walking all slowly in the dark, like so badass.
Yeah, it's very well paced. It's very well put together. Like, this is a really, really well done episode overall. And this
Absolutely.
is one of those scenes that really captures that.
Definitely.
So then we're up in the loft, and the enchantress throws fire at the sisters and tells the prince to come with her as she opens a portal. The two of them walk through, and Phoebe says that they can't let them get away. And Piper's like, "What are we supposed to do? Go back to the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, whatever the hell ages those are?" She's like, "If we don't, good magic will be gone forever." And they run and jump through the portal, and Leo and Paige walk in and see the portal disappear just as Phoebe goes through. And Paige says, "What have I done?"
So I like this idea where they just kind of go for it. I love it sometimes when they just throw themselves into battle when they don't know what they're getting themselves into just because they don't know what else to do. So I'm definitely
Exactly.
looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Yeah. And I do feel bad that like Paige is feeling responsible for this moment and kind of like, oh man, like this is all on me.
Absolutely. So then a little later in the loft, Leo is examining the wall where the portal was, and Paige says, "This is all my fault. Piper and Phoebe were crazy to trust me. Why didn't I listen to them?" And he's like, "Now is not the time to lose it, Paige. We need to get them back." And she's like, "What do we do? Hop on a bus to medieval times?" And he's like, "Paige, concentrate. You're a powerful witch, whether you like it or not." And she says, "Yeah, well, I wasn't powerful enough to take out the enchantress, was I?" And he's like, "One thing your past life should tell you is that you've always been powerful. You still have that power inside of you. Don't be afraid to tap into it now." And she sighs and sits down and starts thinking that maybe she can reword the spell that summoned the prince and have her go to him instead. And she tries it out, and the portal appears, and she walks through, very proud of herself that it worked, and then comes back out and grabs Leo to make him come with her.
Yes. So I love that little comedy at the end where she's like, "Come on, you're coming with me." But like, I do think this is a really effective scene. I like seeing Paige kind of struggling with her abilities and who she is, and kind of Leo doing what he's supposed to do at a guide as their guide and reassuring her and helping her to focus and tap into her power and her smarts that are going to get them to solve the situation.
Yeah, he absolutely is just so good at saying all the right things, like to give her that confidence back. And she was able to do it, just like that. And that last little bit that's also kind of comedic, it also does stand to show Paige kind of having that realization that I don't have to do this on my own.
Exactly. It's really kind
Yeah,
of reinforcing that lesson of like relying on others and accepting help. So I think that's
exactly.
really smart as well as funny.
Agreed.
So then we're back in the old times, and Piper and Phoebe are chained to a wall. And Phoebe's like, "You still glad you told Paige to go for it?" And she's like, "Hey, you were the one who wanted us to be more sisterly towards her. She's like, yes, but not at the expense of being trapped in the dark ages where our powers are useless. And Lady Julia asks who they are and where they came from. And Phoebe starts getting like really sarcastic with her. And Piper's like, we're witches and we have the potion that will stop the enchantress. And Phoebe says, yeah, let's go get her. Oops, we can't because we're chained to a wall.
Again, more of just plot and comedy here, where we get to see that they're kind of trapped in this situation. And I think it's very funny.
It is. I think the bickering's a little much, but it works. It plays for comedy, so I'll accept it.
Definitely does, yeah. So then in the bedroom, the prince is laying down shirtless, and the enchantress approaches in her white gown. And Leo and Paige watch from around the corner because
Of
Leo just
course,
loves
Leo's
to watch.
watching.
Exactly. And she tells him to get Phoebe and Piper, and she'll distract the enchantress, thinking that she can tap into her powers. So Leo goes, and the enchantress takes off her robe and leans down to go kiss the prince.
But does not kiss him.
Exactly. That's just before. So I like Paige's plan here, where she's going to try to tap in, having that confidence in herself, very proud of her, while we see Leo go try to get the girls.
Yes. I also will say, even though it's a little bit of an overkill with the symbolism, I like that every time that the evil enchantress is about to lose her virginity, she has to be in a white dress.
I know, it really is so funny. Like, she really came back and said, "Oh, gotta change.
Gotta change.
They're not going to
Gotta
be
wear
coming
my
after me."
sexy nightgown.
Like, it's so stupid. If you desperately needed that, like, Paige is gonna come after you, I would just be like, all right, let's get to it.
No, literally. She's like, we gotta set the mood.
Yeah, seriously.
And I'm also shocked that like Leo didn't ask to have Paige go get the sisters and he would stay and watch.
Right, seriously.
Well,
So,
actually, he knew that it wasn't gonna happen, so he was fine with leaving.
right, of course. Made sense in that instance. He's seen it with her before, it's no big deal.
So then we go over to the prison, and Leo approaches the sisters and is about to unchain them when this guard comes up, and Leo grabs a sword from the wall and they start fighting. And Leo's kind of getting his ass kicked.
Yeah, definitely not going well at first. And then back in the bedroom, Paige walks up and says, "Hi, hate to interrupt myself at a time like this." And the enchantress gets up and says, "How did you get here?" And she says, "I'm charmed." And the enchantress says, "Not for long." And she goes to throw red lightning at her, but Paige lifts her hand and blue comes out, meeting each other's powers in the middle.
I like this scene. It's very like I like this little like fight. I like the way the like blue and red symbolism of like the good and evil. It's really like working for me. Props to Rose here. It's always hard to act against yourself in a scene because obviously there's no one really there when you're doing it. So I do give her credit for kind of pulling off both parts here pretty well.
I definitely agree. She nailed
Yeah.
it.
And obviously, we're seeing that Paige can, in fact, tap into the powers of the Enchantress, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, she got it like that.
So then we go back to the prison, and the sword fight continues, and Leo gets hit against the wall, and shockingly does not get knocked out like he normally would. Instead, he gets really aggressive and like headbutts the guard and knocks him out. Like, okay, Leo.
Seriously.
And then he goes over to the girls, and Piper's like, Leo. And Phoebe's like, I thought you were a pacifist. And Leo's like, I didn't kill him, did I? And Piper's like, I gotta tell you, I find this side of you very sexy. And he's like, really? And they're like all flirty and giggly.
It's
And he frees them from their chains. And then they hear this loud sound and they're like, oh my God, Paige, and like grab the potions to go.
yeah. I love this scene. Very cute, very funny. Definitely Leo popped out of nowhere with that skill, but I can't
I
say I didn't love
know.
it.
Yes. And I really love the little like husband wife moment of them kind of having this like new interest in him, right? I think sometimes it's like when you're in a relationship for a really long time, you forget that you're still gonna like learn and see new sides to your partner. So kind of like seeing Piper witness that and take an interest in it is really cute for them. So I liked that.
Absolutely. And the way he got all like shy and giddy about it, like
Yeah,
is so
like it was
adorable.
bringing me back to season one Piper and Leo. Like I was really feeling it.
I know, right? It had me it was very, very cute.
Cuties.
So then back in the bedroom, the enchantress throws Paige into the wall, and the prince says, "Don't hurt her," and she just throws him down. Then Piper and Phoebe and Leo run in, and Paige is like, throw the potion. And she raises her hands, and the windy smoke comes out, knocking the Enchantress into the wall. And they throw the potion at her, and the Enchantress tries to lift her hands to use the power, and nothing happens. And the Enchantress is like, what have you done to me? And Leo says, we bound your powers, Enchantress. And Phoebe says, no more kingdom come for you.
Yikes.
And the Enchantress starts, pun intended. Um, and the Enchantress starts crying and says, how could you do this to me, to us? And Paige says, I didn't do it. We did it. Then Lady Julia runs in and goes over to the prince, helping him up, and they kiss. And the Enchantress looks super upset and pouty, and the prince is like, I'm well, my love. And Phoebe says, my love, looks like it takes the kiss of true love to break the spell. And Paige is like, it's in every fairy tale. And Piper's like, all right, super witch, get us out of here. And they all walk out together.
So I just gotta say, I love the Enchantress pouting throughout this whole scene. It's so funny to me. I'm like, she's a little girl.
I know, like she was so like confident and bad bitch, and then she's like, man, come on. Like just
It's like it's bringing me back to like Dora, like swipe or no swipe, and he's like, "Oh man," like that's
yeah,
her in this scene.
seriously. She's like a little kid. It's adorable. I can't even lie.
It's so cute, and like also as far as the kind of defeat, the battle, it works for me. I think it's well done. I like the way kind of they work together as sisters, and Paige used those powers to kind of defeat her. I like the true love's kiss little fairy tale element. We've seen that before in episodes, but I always like seeing it because I'm a little cliche lover.
Yep.
And you know, this little like super witch reference here is cute too, and kind of letting Paige take the lead. So that works for me as well.
Absolutely. Definitely all worked out pretty smoothly, I'd say.
So then we're at Paige's loft and they portal back in and the place is trashed. And Paige is like, looks like I won't be getting my security deposit back. And Piper says, yeah, too bad you don't have any other place to stay. And Phoebe says, it's no pressure. It's totally up to you whenever you're ready. And Piper says, yeah, who needs electricity anyway? And Paige says, I wouldn't have to stay in the basement, would I? And Piper says, no, of course not. I think we have a room for you. And they all smile.
I love it.
It's
Love
very
this little
cute.
moment here.
But one thing I have to point out, isn't the manor destroyed too?
Yeah, but they always figure that shit out.
True, true. They have a repairman on deck there. I forgot. They're always
Yeah,
getting the windows and everything else replaced.
exactly. I mean, I guess Paige can't do that to her house. They needed something to like kind of have the conclusion be her moving in with them.
Yeah. And
Um,
I do like the way like Phoebe's kind of like, yeah, there's no pressure, like,
yeah,
and the way she's kind of like thinking they won't give her Prue's room, but they will. So that's kind of cute too.
exactly. I do wish they kind of made it more sisterly like we wanted. Like it just kind of felt like they were like, oh well, you can come stay with us. I don't know, like they could have mentioned like, oh, something about them growing as sisters rather than just to fight demons, which
Yeah.
they never kind of like separated that.
Yeah, like I think kind of the electricity line here kind of ruined the moment for me a little bit. Like I would have liked a more sisterly line there instead, I think.
Exactly. But still works. Still cute.
Yeah.
So then they're at the manor and it's the next morning and there's a knock on the bedroom door and Paige opens it and her sisters come in and it's all redecorated, Prue's room. And Paige is like, what do you think? And Piper says, it's definitely different. And Phoebe says, it's definitely you. And Paige is like, is that a good thing? Phoebe's like, of course it's a good thing. And she's like, good, because I was actually thinking the living room could use a little spicing up, which very true. Um, and Piper's like, don't push it. And then there's a knock downstairs. Nobody goes to get it. And Phoebe's like, I hope that's not another one of your past lives. And she says that it's Glenn. Phoebe's like, oh, the cute guy from the apartment. And Paige tells them that he's leaving and asked her to go with him, but she passed. And Piper's like, oh, are you disappointed? And she's like, a little, but it's not like I'll be lacking in adventures here. Speaking of which, and then she goes over to the light switch and flips it, and the shocker demon comes out, and they all say the spell together and vanquish him. And she's like, okay, gotta go. And remember, if you need me, please knock. And she walks out, then Piper and Phoebe laugh. And Piper says, and they lived happily ever after. And Phoebe's like, yeah, right. And puts her arm around Piper and they walk out laughing.
Okay, I have a couple questions. First question. Why did he knock instead of ring the bell? How the fuck did they hear that from all the way upstairs so loudly?
No clue. And why did they wait so long? Like, I would have
That's what
been
I was
like,
about to say. First of all, did Paige move in the very next morning? Did they just go through the whole night in the dark? Like, I'm confused.
yeah, definitely some questions happening here.
Like, it's
Like,
like, oh, let me unpack and decorate my room in the dark.
yeah, her like was her lease just up that day? I don't like she just moved out the exact same day, didn't even discuss it with the landlord or anything, like nothing quite adds up.
Yeah,
But plot sake.
exactly.
And I
Nice
like,
little wrap up for our B plot, though, vanquishing the demon together as sisters. I like the way that they're interacting here, kind of Paige being like, oh, like spice things up in the living room. We remember how pissed Piper got when Leo tried to put that ugly lamp. Like, it's not happening, baby girl. I hate to break it to you.
yeah, never gonna happen. Sorry to hear that. But it works. It works for me. Their setup of their house.
Yeah. Also, another thing I want to point out. So, this episode, Phoebe's shirt, right? She's wearing the little American flag shirt. This is likely the first episode that they shot after 9/11. And it was super common in shows for this time to just start adding in like characters dressing super patriotically as a response to that. Because typically shows are filming 6 weeks ahead. So episode 6 would have been the first episode that they filmed after 9/11 happened. So that's probably why they put Phoebe in this top. And if you look, there are a lot of promotional pictures that came out of her in the American flag top as well.
Yeah, definitely respectable, I'd say. I
Yeah.
figured it was very common at that time because I noticed the patriotic shirt too, and the date, of course, in which this was released.
Yeah. Final thoughts on the episode?
I love this episode. It's always a very entertaining one to watch. I think we learned a lot about Paige and kind of both sides of the sisterly aspects from both Paige and Piper and Phoebe. I like that now we have all three of them under one roof. Like it feels like it just all around was a very strong episode for me.
Yeah, I think it brought out something that's obviously going to become important to later episodes. If we're still thinking that the source is going to be our big bad this season, obviously having them all under one roof is going to make that easier for more with that plot line to start happening. I mean, they do mention here that all these demons are coming after them to impress the source, right? So obviously he's still on the back of our minds, even though we haven't seen him in a few episodes. We get a little bit of Paige's past life, which is interesting. We, like you said, see that sisterly bond developing further. And also, I think just get, like we were saying last episode, more of Piper and Paige coming to an understanding. I wonder if they're going to stay in a good place or if we're going to see kind of a reset in the next episode, like we did in this episode. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely curious about all of those same things because we have talked about how it does feel like they start from scratch each time.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If you want to reach out to us or follow us on social media, we're on Instagram and TikTok at rewitched_pod. Or you can send us an email to rewitched.pod@gmail.com. Either way, we appreciate you listening and hope you'll join us back next time for season 4, episode 7, Brain Drain.